This is a tutorial for a keychain with a box and some text on it. So I'm going to click Create New Design. And since we are working in standard measurement, we're going to come down to Edit Grid and change our units to inches and update our grid. And then I'm going to change my snap grid to a smaller increment. It's at 8 inch, and I'm going to change it down because I'm going to be moving letters and things around to 1/32. Okay, so don't forget to come up here and give your keychain a name. So I would want you to use a color. So let's say I'm going to print this one in pink. And I'm going to put my first and last name, and then I'm going to type in keychain. Okay. The other thing that I am doing to get started, to get set up properly, is to switch to the flat view, which allows me to see things a little bit easier. You can still hold down 2 fingers and rotate, one finger, Control. Sorry, I forget on the Chromebooks it's different. You hold down your Control button and then you should be able to use a finger, press and hold, and use your other finger to rotate it around. I have a mouse on mine, so that allows me to just right click. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is pull in a box and make it the outer size dimensions of what I want. Oops, it switched back from millimeters. Let me go back to inches. There we go. Okay. So if you click the corner, it'll bring up a measurement so you can get a good idea of, you can change that number to how big you want it to be. When I'm making a keychain, I don't usually like it. I said you can go up to 4 inches. I don't usually like it much larger than 3 inches. So I'm going to click on that number and take it down to 3. And then for the side, let me get that out of the way. I'm going to make it about 1.25. It's about a size that I think looks really nice. And then for how tall I want it to go, I can click on that button there. And 0.78 is much bigger than my maximum size of 0.5, but even 0.5 is very thick. And so I like it to take it down to about 0.2 or 0.25. Okay, 0.25 is really plenty thick. Okay, so I've got my basic shape. Now I'm going to click on that and I'm going to actually copy it. So I'm going to press Control C and Control V. And on this one, I'm going to make it a little bit smaller. So I want about a 1/4 inch thickness in my rectangle all the way around. So if I've got, and this is where a little handy calculator can be so handy if you can't come up with this number right away in your head. But I've got, the height of mine is 1.25, and I want the top to be 0.25 thick and the bottom to be 0.25 thick. So that means my inside dimension, I need to take off a 1/2 inch, is going to be 0.75. So I need to change this number here to 0.75. And then the width is, since it was 3 over here, again, I need to take off a 1/4 inch on this side and a 1/4 inch on this side. So I'm going to click on this and take 3 minus 0.5, which is 2.5. And I'm going to turn that into a hole. Okay, so this is going to fit right inside there. And if you do that and you think, oh, I think maybe it could be a little bit bigger, you can always add to that. You know, it was 0.75, maybe I'll do 0.8. And 2.5, maybe I'll do, 2.6. Okay. Now we need to align these 2 blocks together. So you're going to click on your hole, hold down the Shift key, and click on your rectangle. And this is where this align tool is really important. So I want to align them evenly in the middle this way and evenly in the middle this way. Okay, so now I know it's perfectly in the middle. And if I drag a box around both of them or push shift and click on both of them, I can now group them together. And so now I've got this. Now, if you accidentally have your one piece up higher than the other, well, maybe it's not accidentally. If you do this, you can see what different shape you have. You have like a cutout, which is pretty cool. Okay, but that's not what I wanted. So you can either take that that hole and just make it a lot higher, so you make sure it goes through both the top and bottom. Or a very handy button is just to press the letter D, and that'll make sure that it puts it directly right on your work plane. So now I'm going to click my hole, hold down shift, click my red box, group them together, and I've got a hole in the middle. The next thing I'm going to do is grab my text tool. So there's two different ways you can do text. You can go down to text and numbers and pull in letters individually, but I prefer this one under the basic shapes. And if you come down to, you might have to scroll down here because this is what's at the top, and you can grab your text tool and click it in there. And it's okay if it's too big or too small. And I'm going to change the color just so this is easy to see. And then you need to click on the letters. Excuse me, I'm telling you the wrong thing. When you're clicked on the letters, you need to click down, and this is where you change the text. So if I want to do a text with, I'm going to do I'll do my first name. It's long, and I'm going to do that on purpose. So you can do capitals if you're going to do something like this, because you want it to touch the top and the bottom. Okay. So now I'm going to come down here into the font, and you can look at some different fonts that are available to you. Kind of like that one. Kind of like that one. Okay, so you've got a few, there's not a whole lot, but there's a couple to pick from. Okay, now clearly my name is way too wide, so I'm going to click on it, and I'm going to have to really shrink it up to get it to fit in here. Oops. Okay. And if that looks good to you, you want it to overlap that middle part a little bit. So my middle part was 0.8 from bottom to top. So I want the height of this to be a little bit more than 0.8. Maybe I want it like 0.86, okay? Or even, yeah, that looks pretty good, okay? Because I want it to just overlap there just a little bit. If they only exactly touch, if I made this the exact same 0.8, then when I went to go print it, the A would be touching the edge, but it would fall right off because they would be touching and not joined. So I need them to overlap just a little bit. So I'm going to click on that again and make it like 0.86. Now you can just kind of visually decide where you want it to go. And I think I'm even going to make this a little skinnier. Okay, and of course, if you think that's not going to fit very well, by all means, grab this and extend it out. Okay, so instead of having my 2.5 inch or my 3 inch, now I've got 3.19. That's fine. Okay, so in order to make sure it's perfectly centered, because right now you can see my S is way over on the edge, I'm going to click my letters. Oops, there we go. Click my box, hold down shift, click my letters, and before I group them, I'm going to align them. So I click my align tool, and I want to align them in the middle this way, and I want to align them in the middle this way with just a little bit of overlap. And now I'm just going to take a look before, and I'm not going to group it yet because my letters are really tall, and I don't want my letters to be taller than my little box. So I'm going to click on my letters and make them a little bit shorter, so they're the exact same size as my red box. Now I'm going to click shift, click my red box, and group them together. So now I've got a single keychain, and that gives me a pretty good idea of what it's going to look like. Now I'm going to select some kind of a ring or a torus or a tube. The torus works really well in this one just because I like the look of it. I'm going to grab this tube. And I just like the idea of this big old ring next to it. I think it looks super cool. I'm going to shrink this down to the same size. Okay, so it's exactly the same width. You could make it less than that if you want to. The only thing I caution you against is a lot of people sometimes will raise this up like that. And so you can see here when our 3D printer goes to lay down its first layer, it'll start over here. It'll eventually add this, but the problem is it's going to have to create supports because it cannot lay down this in mid-air. It only can build on itself, okay? So it's best to press the letter D and make sure that it's exactly on the bottom, okay? But I actually want this one to be the same height, so I'm going to do it like that, okay? And I think that looks pretty good. Again, if you want to make it exactly in the middle, click Shift, click both objects, click that Align tool. Once you start, the first time I use the Align tool, it's so weird for me, but the more I use it, I got way fast, I got good at it really fast. Okay, so that Align tool is really handy. And now, of course, I'm going to turn it into a single object and group it together. Okay. Now, you can add, I showed you on another one how to add a fillet. You can also add like, you know, a little star in the corner if you want to. And set that right on top. Okay. Oops. I think I don't want it to be that tall. There we go. But I'm going to lift it up and you just, oops. If you do set something on top of it, you just need to make sure that they're joined together, because I sometimes have people do something like this, where from the top it looks great, but from the side they're not joined. And if you give me a file like this, these two things will not attach together. So it's really important that you look and see and make sure that it overlaps just a little bit in order for it to be there. And I really like that star. So I'm going to click Shift and select the whole thing and group it together and just give it that extra little bit of pizzazz. You don't have to worry about saving it. It saves automatically. But you do need to watch the other videos to find out how to export your file when you're all done with it.